Hello and welcome. I call to order this April 28th, 2021 meeting of the Needham Finance Committee. As a preliminary matter, allow me to confirm that all members and persons expected on the meeting are present and can hear me. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Josh Levy.
Here.
Dick Riley.
Here.
Jim Healy.
Here.
Rick Lunetta.
Here.
Tom Jacob.
Here.
John Conley.
Here.
Louise Miller. Here. Barry Kaufman.
Here.
And staff member Louise Misgert.
Here.
Good evening. This open meeting of the Needham Finance Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate transmission of the virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so the public may follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. Except for the agenda item entitled Citizen Request to Address the Finance Committee, this meeting will not feature public comment. For the meeting, the Needham Finance Committee is convening via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. All supporting materials have been provided members of this body and will be available on the town's website. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda, and that is citizens' request to address the Finance Committee.
Madam Chair, there are 3 individuals as attendees and no one has their hand raised.
Okay, very good. Then we're moving to approval of prior meetings minutes, both April 14th and April 21st.
I so move their acceptance and approval.
Second.
Great, let's take a voice vote on that. Dick Riley? Dick is on mute. Yes?
Yes.
Jim Healy?
Yes.
Rick Lunetta?
Yes.
Tom Jacob?
Yes.
Josh Levy?
Yes.
John Conley?
Yes.
Louise Miller?
Yes.
Barry Kaufman? And
I vote yes. I vote yes for April 21st. I'm going to abstain from April 14th since I did not attend.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Barry. And the chair votes yes for both. So the minutes are approved. Then we were turning to the first articles left to be considered. Article 1, collective bargaining, the Independent Town Workers Association. We are, Dave?
Madam Chair, Article 1 is to request the Finance Committee's approval of the collective bargaining agreement with the Independent Town Workers Association. It is the same information as I discussed with the committee last week, but at that time the Select Board had yet to act upon it. I can report that the Select Board approved and ratified the contract last night. It's a 3-year contract. It is with individuals who are in administrative, clerical, and paraprofessional positions across town departments.
How many persons are covered under the?
It's approximately 55 to 60 individuals.
Okay.
Or should I say positions?
Very good.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just 2 technical questions for Dave. Dave, the step increase of 24,000 in the first year of the contract, is that already in the salary and wage line for the FY22 budget?
Yes, in FY22, the steps that are expected to happen were incorporated into all the operating budgets. We show it here for illustrative purposes so people can see what the total increase is for the cost of compensation for FY22. The amount that, if this is ratified by town, recommended by the Finance Committee and ratified by town meeting, that would need to be added to the operating budgets is $58,109. And there are positions, it's one position that is in the Water Enterprise Fund budget. That $58,109 is reflective of those costs, but the actual funds to be transferred into the Water Enterprise Fund budget would happen in the fall, and that would be approximately $998.
Gotcha. Madam Chair, one more question. Dave, for the full 3 years, does that money go in now to the classification and performance line to be doled out in year 2 and year 3 of the contract?
Madam Chair, in answer to the question, because these are now known costs, they would be reflective in the department budget submissions for FY 2023 and FY 2024. In FY 2022, because the budget that was presented and what the Finance Committee has recommended was done before the collective bargaining agreement, that approximately $57,000 will be transferred from the settlements line, if approved by town meeting.
Thank you.
Dick,
Yep. Dave, my memory of it, and I don't have it in front of me, is a 1% give or take raise in the first year and a 2+% raise in the second year. What's the rationale behind structuring it that way rather than leveling it over the 2 years?
All contracts are negotiated with the respective unions in the give and take through the collective bargaining process, and that's where we reached. With the uncertainty for fiscal 22 and perhaps a lingering uncertainty in 2023, we looked at having as much of a lower cost for the contract, and in order to reach agreement over 3 years, the third year was higher with a 2.5% wage adjustment to the schedule.
So basically back ending it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Louise?
So, Dave, I have a question about the enterprise fund. Why would there be a subsidy from the general fund for enterprise fund collective bargaining? Couldn't we just absorb that in the enterprise fund budget?
There won't be a subsidy. The funds would be paid by the enterprise fund, but they would be appropriated in the fall because because we can't transfer it from the general fund to the enterprise fund.
Right. So there's no subsidy.
There will be no subsidy.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I recommend that the Finance Committee vote to approve this Article 1 as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Let's just take a voice vote on that. Jim Healy,
Yes.
Tom Jacob,
Yes.
Josh Levy,
Yes.
John Conley,
Yes.
Louise Miller,
Yes.
Barry Kaufman,
Yes.
Rick Lunetta,
Yes.
Dick Riley,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So Article 1 is approved. Turning to Article 35. Dave.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm reporting that the select board last night at its meeting took up the general fund cash capital and recommended and voted to amend the warrant article consistent with that which the Finance Committee had recommended, and therefore their amendment will be on the floor at town meeting, which is matching what the Finance Committee was recommending.
So technically, we need to vote that at town meeting. Is that correct?
I would expect that because the Finance Committee did already vote to recommend the warrant article with an amendment to strike the Ridge Hill project and to strike the Pollitt School feasibility study. That was the recommendation that the Finance Committee was putting forth. The Select Board now has actually offered a motion to amend. So the Finance Committee doesn't need to change its recommendation.
So we don't need to vote on that motion to amend just as a technicality. Dick?
I would think we should vote to recommend adoption of the amendment. Don't
Well,
we have
certainly
to?
the privilege of the Finance Committee to do that, just legally, you're in sync with the Board of Selectmen, because the Board of Selectmen adopted the amendments that the committee made with its main motion.
I might suggest that we leave things as they are. We made a motion, we approved it, and the Board of Selectmen has agreed with us.
And that will, our approval of, so I guess our approval of that will be reflected somewhere for town meeting members to, it's in the presentation. But will it, you know, how are we going to convey that to town meeting?
By me uploading my report.
So I guess that's, so if you lawyers think that's sufficient, and then that's what I think we should do.
Louise Misgood, could I ask a question? The minutes from the 21st, I guess, indicate that we voted to approve the amendment. So technically, have we done that?
We haven't approved the amendment. What we've done is we voted in favor of the article having deleted those two lines from it.
So I guess that's really the same thing.
In content, it's the same thing substantively.
Okay. So then we'll just leave it as is. Thank you.
Let me ask a question, not to be combative here. On the floor, there's going to be an amendment that's proposed actually by the Board of Selectmen, not by us.
Yes.
So we haven't actually voted on their amendment is my concern. We proposed one.
Yep.
If the reverse was stated on the floor, then I'd be okay with it, that the Finance Committee proposed an amendment and it was approved by the Board of Selectmen. That's what we did, but I'm not sure that's how it's going to be presented. So I have that question.
I'm happy to go with whatever the committee wants to do, but I think it's a good thing that frankly, the Board of Selectmen are following us.
Well, I'm not arguing.
Traditionally, we don't, lots of amendments get proposed that we don't vote on.
No, but we proposed this amendment. I mean,
Right.
that's the difference.
Madam Chair,
Rick?
question, what will town meeting members know? They will not have had the advantage of all this conversation in the background. So when they sit to vote on this article, what will they know that this committee did?
Allow you to let me read a paragraph.
Okay.
As you have heard, an amendment has been proposed with respect to Article 35. That amendment would reduce the total appropriation under Article 35 by $930,000. Specifically, the amendment would eliminate $280,000 for the Pollitt School feasibility study, as well as $650,000 for the Ridge Hill building demolition. The Finance Committee supports the proposed amendment, and indeed, the amendment was in response to our recommendation.
I think they'll know. I think that's sufficient.
If they don't figure that out, then we should go for 5 nights at town meeting.
I agree.
Okay,
I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend adoption of the cash capital article as amended by the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
all right, let's take a vote. Dick?
Aye.
Jim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Louise?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So, great. Article 35 is settled. Anything else? Do we have any other,
Do we have to take, there was an amendment to the
well,
5 and 6, wasn't there? 5?
there's
Do we
three
have to take a
amendments.
position on that?
There's three. Well, the problem is that we got those amendments, but if you look online, I haven't seen those filed anywhere. There's one amendment to 5 and 6, which is a citizen that wanted to recommend that green construction be used for anything in the zoning district. But the two others have not surfaced. So what do we do in that position? I don't think we can.
We wait until town meeting and we
Yep.
see what takes place. And if we feel that we need to take a position on an amendment, we huddle at our table to do so.
Okay. I mean, I think we will. I think we'll probably be presented with two amendments at town meeting. So could be a long night on Monday night. I'm hoping it's warm. So
Supposed to be 80 on Monday.
beautiful.
Scattered showers possible.
Okay, that's Eeyore there.
Yeah.
So are we, my question is, and I've asked the moderator this question, legally, we're sitting 6 feet apart, right?
Mhm.
We could all take our masks off, couldn't we?
Yes.
If we've been vaccinated,
Woo-hoo! No, I think that even if you haven't been vaccinated,
Outdoors.
outdoors in the state of Massachusetts, no?
no, I think it's you need your vaccination fully. And if you are, then you're outside and not in a large group and you're socially distanced, you can take your mask off. But I think the vaccines are very much a part of that equation.
And we are a lot part of a large group, aren't we? By definition?
Too
Yeah,
large.
Very
Yeah.
large group, probably most have been vaccinated, but all right, well,
bring it
leave the
anyway.
masks- we'll leave the masks on then. So I will see you all at town meeting.
So
There's no need
can
to-
I just offer something, Madam Chair?
Yes, you may.
Being the newcomer, so this is my initiation. I know hazing is not allowed, but I would like to say, thank you very much for allowing me into your group since December. And I've got a lot to learn and I've had some rough spots, but I very much appreciate all the help that you have given me. And I wish every one of us great success on Saturday, Sunday, and/or Monday. Finance Committee's great. You guys have done a wonderful job, Carol and Josh. And so God bless and good luck to all of you.
Thank you.
Here, here.
Just one question, two questions actually. Louise, when are we meeting after town meeting? When,
Oh, we haven't said anything, and we talked about maybe June 23rd, but Dave may want to weigh in on what works for him. Well, first of all, I don't know when the facility financing plan's coming out, and then the last one, I suppose, will be around June 23rd. Dave,
okay.
30th is probably too late, right?
The 30th
Whichever-
would be
Sorry,
too
Madam
late, I
Chair.
think.
Whichever date works for the committee in June, 23rd or the 30th is fine.
Okay, and the other thing that was, I mean, we have the facilities financing plan, but the other kind of on our to-do list was to actually have the library board in.
Do you want to do that this spring? Sure.
Well, I feel like since if we can combine that with something else, I think we should do that because we kind of committed to moving forward with that. So, Dick,
As a follow, is there any thought as to when we're going to go to meeting in person?
I'm ready.
I am too. I want to go. Dave,
Madam Chair, there are some guidances coming out in early June for when that can happen. Thinking it's going to be the fall. I'm hoping it's going to be the fall.
So it'll be
Uh,
pushed out to the fall then, nothing.
Well, I'm thinking for the finance committee, you're not going to have the intensity of meetings as you've had for the last 4 months. But honestly, I do not anticipate any in-person meetings until after July 1st. It's probably going to be after August 1st.
I kind of like being able to meet from anywhere.
Yeah.
You would,
Basically, you're
Karen.
everywhere.
I was going to recommend that, if possible, we continue the option of someone coming in through Zoom.
Right. David, do you think the governor will allow that, us to vote not being present in person after this COVID is over?
After the state of emergency has passed, you will not be able to do that unless there's legislative change to the open meeting laws. I know there's been discussion and there may even be some bills to look at that, but the cost and the logistics of making every room remote enable for communities that are as small as 400 people and as large as
Yeah.
the city of Boston.
Yeah.
So there's a lot for them to consider by making that a requirement. But right now, the law of the Commonwealth is that in order to vote, you must be present at the meeting. That was suspended by the governor under the state of emergency.
Gotcha. Do you think they would, allow each town to make a decision on their own, seeing that Needham has functioned quite nicely for a year?
So can I'm going to interrupt, but it's a huge amount of work for staff to actually do Zoom. And so while it might be for the convenience of committee members, I think we need to balance that with what the staff time and effort is that is required to do that. So prior to the pandemic, there was an option was there an option in Needham for joining by phone? No, there was not. And so I think we need to consider that because it does take a lot of effort to put those meetings together.
Seems
I
like
also
this is-
think, just to supplement that, and looking at it from a different perspective, that I do think with respect to the open meeting law and all of its requirements, that I think there's going to be some challenges as that law is presently constituted to have some sort of hybrid attendance where people could be remote and also present. And how do you protect that and guard that? And I would think that would have to play out. I think the experience has been such that, go to Dick's point, I think people like the option, but I don't think it's going to be in our control to
Fair enough.
dictate
I
that.
put this under the category of borrowing sorrow for tomorrow. So let's just kind of wait and see what happens.
Hey, Carol, before we adjourn, do you want to talk about the meeting we had yesterday with the school committee?
Oh. Yes.
It sounds like a no, but okay.
What?
Now
Not
that
like
it's been brought up.
Yes. So, Barry, you can paraphrase it too. So it was a delightful meeting with the school committee, which basically suggested that they are going to have cash of, I don't have that worksheet in front of me right now, but over $1 million to,
Well, actually, their surplus at the end of the year is going to be almost $4 million.
well,
Of
3 and
which-
change.
Yeah, almost 3.9, of which they are probably going to propose returning about $1 million to the town, and use the others for the rest of it to prepare for potential mitigations in the fall.
Yeah, some of it is again they just don't know what's going on with with respect to the remote learning academy, how they might still have to distance. Part of it is prepaying special ed tuition, and that was.
But the
those are
the bottom line is based on savings from money they didn't spend for a lot of supplies primarily, and some savings from lack of the need for substitutes, and all the grants we got from the federal government. They ended up in a pretty meaningful surplus position.
And there's Louise.
So, because we heard from other departments, specifically the facilities department, that they had additional expenses this year, I do have a question whether we couldn't simply ask that that money be transferred out of the school surplus if we have not yet received CARES or FEMA reimbursement. And I know, Dave, there's a mechanism for doing that in June.
Dave.
Yeah, this is an estimate, by the way. This is
Yeah, no,
this
yeah.
is this is yeah. It's not an actual. This is what they believe based on their.
Right. Dave.
Unfortunately, the statute that Louise is referencing, the town of Needham never adopted. So that ability in the last month of the fiscal year, we're not allowed to do those transfers. So only town meeting can do that. And of course, the warrant's already closed.
Can we put it on the warrant next year?
There'll be, fiscal year will be over.
No, I know, but maybe we can use it next year.
But couldn't we structure it so it goes into free cash?
We can, but I think what I was thinking was where we have those expenses for facilities that we talked about, that we were trying to figure out whether we were going to get the
Yeah.
reimbursement this
Right.
year or not.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been good to transfer those monies. Okay, that was just a thought.
Spend down has always been an issue. As
Yeah.
long as I've been around in town government, the spend down has always been something that the finance committee needs to weigh in on and try to have some involvement and some opinion. And some years it seems we do, some years it seems we don't. But I continue to believe that we should have a role in that. I'm not saying we should micromanage it. I'm not saying that we should control it. I'm not saying that we should be the last voice, but I think we should have a role in that.
I totally agree with you, Jim, believe it or not.
Louise Misgod, I want that reflected in the minutes.
While we're on the general subject of school issues and so forth, the papers are still getting very full of reports of companies downsizing their space needs and so forth. So the question that we've been raising periodically about Emery Grover and what the options are, I still don't get the feeling that there's a very aggressive push at looking at those options.
When
Well,
is,
hopefully we'll be discussing that this summer.
Yeah, John. did you
Yeah, I
wanna-
mean, I think you're absolutely right, Dick, and I know that that's one of the things I'm going to push hard on these meetings this summer, that needs to take place and has to take place. I mean, obviously we can't do it, but at every meeting that we have that we talk about facilities going forward, that's going to be a push from me, and I'm sure the others, Carolyn and Barry, will be the same.
And in all honesty, I really think that the superintendent just wants a place more hospitable for his staff and for the community than Emery Grover as the way it's currently construed. And so I think he'd be willing, I think he's open. He's definitely open to working toward a solution that works for us and for the town and for the schools. So I think that's what we'll be doing over the summer.
Right. I mean, I don't see what the downside is to prepare an RFP and to test the market and to see what we get back with available space. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But at least you'll know what is available and what potential spaces and costs of those spaces are. Unless you do that RFP, you're just sort of speculating and doing what we're doing right now.
Right.
And so I'm going to push hard to get that RFP out there, and let's really see what the market speaks to on that and what is available or not.
But isn't a first step in the RFP some analysis of what the needs are? In other words, how many of the current employees could in fact work remotely? It doesn't seem to me that that's something that the school department is looking at very aggressively. I think they're assuming business as usual.
Not only that, Dick, but you can't just translate over their program space that they have in this proposed new Emery Grover. You know, that includes a conference center and things like this. I think I would structure the RFP is we're looking for X number of square feet for 5 years. And, you know,
For a staff of 36,
in a
right?
building that has these type of features, and see what comes back as those responses.
But that's my point. The staff of 36, what I hear companies doing is they have a permanent staff of 25 with people hoteling in on space and so forth, rather than having a specific location for each employee.
Jim?
So one of the cottage industries that's developed over the last 7 months has been to give consultative advice as to how much space is needed for what your needs are. And they go through the process and say, well, what are all your people doing? And how can we do this, whether it's remotely or whether it's in person? Now, I don't know if any of that's been done. So as much as I can't stand the thought of paying for consultative services, that actually would be a good thing to do. And I think, Rick, you probably must know that that's been going on throughout the whole, you know, industry for companies. They want to know what is the right balance of being in person versus remote. And once you get that answer, or at least some semblance of an answer, then, as John says, you go out for an RFP to try and accomplish and accommodate that answer.
Jim, you might not need to hire a consultant. When I did this before I retired and found that space in Boston, the commercial realtor who walked me around to all these places had all kinds of mechanisms that we used to fill out and stuff that gave him guidance on where to go find. And that seemed to be a part of the overall fee stuff. So I'm not sure when John and crew put together the RFP, we probably should just check a couple of commercial realtors and see if indeed they can respond to that without consultancy. Could be save some money there. However, we may be different. Maybe our school department hasn't really thought about the ins and outs as we did before we actually bit the apple. So, but yeah, it should be looked at.
Isn't this analysis maybe shouldn't just be limited to the school department? I know they're moving and they need it right away, but the whole town may have some reduced needs, and therefore some shared space could be found that way as well. So,
and what they've said, Tom, is that it's not even just about needs. Right now, the labor market is such that people are looking for positions that allow for remote working.
that's right.
So in terms of attracting talent and retaining talent, a lot of places have said, well, we've got to offer this type of an opportunity.
Yeah, certainly some things need to be in person. They need to be available for the public facing, but not everything is in that category. So that's true.
We're rolling it out at my law firm to have that ability to work remotely. Now you have to get an approval process and all kinds of things like that. And it can be for no more than 2 days a week. But the argument that was made and that convinced the partners was that was going to help us keep the associates we want to keep and attract the associates we want to attract. And we needed to put that on our menu just as we do our other benefits and things like that. So I know we're not alone in that but I really do think you're correct, Jim. That's where it's going.
Yeah. Just pick up the Wall Street Journal every day of the week and you'll see all kinds of stuff talking about this. It is.
It's also not hard to, like, as you said, Dick, be a hoteler. I mean, before I left Fidelity, I was a hoteler. And the whole floor was a hoteler. And they had a file cabinet, which was called the Puppy. And you just wheeled it into wherever you happened to be that day. So.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Great. All in favor? Let's take a voice vote. Dick,
Aye.
Jim,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Louise.
Yes.
Very good. We'll see you Saturday.
See you.
I just